in my life story to why I'm running for school board. I was born in St. Louis, grew up in St. Louis County and St. Charles, went to the public schools. I was a working musician very young, wound up leaving home when I was 17 for a lot of different reasons. Not because I had problems at home, but because the economy was bad and things were not good for my family. And a year later, I finished high school a semester early and joined the Army. Got out of the Army in 1977, came down here to go to school on the GI Bill. I actually wound up going back to St. Louis to finish up my bachelor's in philosophy at Washington University. Then I came back down to Mizzou in '81 to go to law school, but after a year and a half, I guess because I'm a slow learner, I realized I was in the wrong place doing the wrong thing. So I went over to the graduate school and started working on a PhD in philosophy, and I finished that up in '90. During which time I taught 5 years at the university. I got married, started having kids. Well, when I was done with '90, there were no jobs in philosophy. I think the one job that opened up here in central Missouri went to somebody from Cornell over at Westminster. I think that's where it was. Because Cornell probably just looks better on a letterhead than University of Missouri. But although Mizzou's got a good philosophy department. So I wound up, for different reasons, being the stay-at-home parent. My wife and I, kind of preferred to have our kids raised by, people who weren't exactly strangers, and there weren't jobs in my field anyway. So I went back to playing music. I tried some different things, but eventually I just wound up going back to playing music, and I did that for about 14 years. At some point, I actually ran for the Missouri Democratic Senate primary, and that was in 1992. So I, stay-at-home dad, working part-times, nights and weekends. And then once our youngest got old enough to come and go on his own, I tried to go back into the regular job market, and I was a substitute teacher for the Columbia School District for a year and a half from 2005 2006. I've learned that I wasn't cut out for that, or something wasn't right about that. So then I wound up getting a job working at a small vineyard down by Hartsburg, and I was down there for 4 years. But during that time, somebody broke the economy, and that job came to a close in October of just last year. So, although it's factually true, it's literally true that I am now currently unemployed. It's the first time since I've been about 14 that I haven't had either a gig going, or I wasn't between gigs when I knew when the other one was going to start. This is very different. But I'm 55. I understand it happens to a lot of people our age. Although I don't at all feel as old as some people tell me I look. So anyway, I started running. I ran because I've thought about it before. The school my wife and I got 2 kids. Our oldest has gone all the way K through public schools and has since graduated from Mizzou. Our youngest is now a Hickman Junior. The school district has been mostly very good to them. We have very few complaints about what's been done, what's happened. It's obvious they get an education there. They've managed to get an education there. But over the years, there's just been little quibbles and things that I haven't liked. And the last thing that I heard about was the board's decision to open up the suspension center. And I just decided that it was the last thing I was going to read or hear about that I wasn't going to do something about. I got this personality that's either, cliched, in for penny, in for pound. Either you step a full step or you don't take the step at all. So, okay, if I'm going to do something about it, I'm going to run for office. I'm just not going to go get on a committee. I'm going to go run for office and get in a policy-making position. So that's how I wound up running for the board.
All right, and there was also reading in the Missourian, I saw something with your son had inspired you.
Well, that was the second to last thing.
Okay.
It was, and I can, and all
suspension.
Yeah. I mean, he pulled a 5-day suspension. It was required by the rules. He's a kid that's got no history of disciplinary problems. He's a kid who's, well, he was in Triple E for a number of years. He's one of those kids that Michelle Pruitt has warned me about. Happens to district kids in the district. They're highly talented, highly intelligent, who otherwise, don't fare much better than their peers in the district, and is marginally committed. I mean, he's a musician. He's very active in trips. You can find his music on YouTube. He wishes to go to school to be a composer, but I think part of it's again for where we live. We live in a very integrated, very middle income, low to middle income neighborhood out Fairways Meadow subdivision. And I saw what happened to his friends, the same that happened to my older boys' friends. The majority of them do not wind up going to college. Those that did seem to have always had a parent who had, and of those who even, maybe a third of them wind up dropping out of high school. Another third wind up finishing high school, but then don't go into any kind of postgraduate, post-secondary education. I mean, working for minimum wage jobs, trying to make ends meet on that. So my kid was one of those guys, one of those kids who's got the brains, got the talent. School's not a place that he really fits in. Although again, I can't really complain, about a lot about that. If his experience had been the only thing that happened, I wouldn't be running. But it was like the very day after he got the suspension, I read the article in the newspaper that the district has got a policy. There are so many kids being suspended for 5 days or more that the suspension center has been funded. And I understand that. They cannot be on the street. The kids who are most likely to be suspended are the ones who need to be in school. Most need to be in school. So I always have to clarify, I'm not trying to shut down the suspension center, but I am trying to work on whatever it is that's put the district in the position where, 500 different, it's not necessarily 500 different kids, but it's the number of incidents are on track to, exceed 500 again this year, 5-day suspensions or more. That's not counting all the kids down in the middle school to pull these 3-day suspensions. That's not, counting the occasional kid even in grade school that gets, a couple of days. Something's not right. I mean, it's a good district, but something's not right. So that's what first got my attention, and it's still always on my mind, but it's not the only thing that's been on my mind.
That said, with budget cuts in mind, budgets are tight as they are,
right,
with more cuts possibly coming.
Not if I have anything to say about it.
Right. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Well, Belcher, Superintendent Belcher, did say at the last board meeting that he had cut just about everything he could figure out to cut. That unless the state started meeting its responsibility, I'm going to paraphrase. The way he might editorialize his comments would be different. I will put it this way, but the bottom line was the same. Unless the state starts to meet its responsibilities, unless new revenue comes from somebody somewhere, then he said, his words were, we're going to have some very serious conversations about the quality of the programs we're going to be able to offer. And already, if you listen to people in the community, there's the finger pointing, the complaining. Everybody's got their scapegoat that they're going to ding should the budget be cut. And I've said I'm not going to go along with that. If Dr. Belcher comes to the board when I'm on the board in the next budget cycle and says we have to cut this, that, or the other thing, I'm going to try to persuade the board that it's time to go to the electorate for a levy increase. I'm not going to cut athletics. I'm not going to cut arts. I'm not going to cut any other extracurriculars. I'm not going to scapegoat Douglas or Triple E or anything like that.